Good morning, my friends. Welcome back to my channel. So the day has finally come. Woohoo! I know you guys, well, a lot of you have been waiting for a very long time for this day to finally arrive, and we are here. It is time for the flip through of the Edgar Allan Poe Junk Journal, and this will be part one of 3 parts, and this is going to be the longest part because I've got to go through the charm and the cover. So you guys grab a snack for this one, and I'm going to make this as quick as possible. So I'm going to go ahead and tell you, if you have any questions about anything that I don't get to go through like I normally do, please don't hesitate to leave me a question down below, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. I'm going to preface this by saying, yes, there are macabre elements in this journal. Yes, there are going to be some dark things. Yes, there are going to be some bloody things. There's also going to be some anatomical and medical type things. So if that's not your jam, you can go ahead and click out now, or you can just skip ahead when we get to those parts. That's fine with me. I know this is not going to be for everybody. Also, before you leave, Poe's work is not all about that stuff, so it's a common misconception. He was misunderstood in his time. He's still misunderstood now. So I did want to let you guys know that I took more of a romantic route with this. As you can see, there's lots of laces and fabrics in here. So if you want to stick around and check it out, I mean, you can skip through the really creepy parts if you want to, but I'm just going to go ahead and get started. This is a very large journal, so like I said, I'm going to make it as quick as possible. So it measures approximately 6 inches wide by 9.5 inches tall. It has an approximately 4-inch spine, and there are 3 signatures with around 20 or so pages in each. I'm sorry I didn't count them before I started the video. The cover I created by using gipsyrose paperie's tutorial, which I will link down below, and I was very pleased with the way that it turned out. So I wanted to thank you again, girl, for your amazing tutorial for your keepsake journal cover, because I don't think I've made a more fabulous cover in my life. So I'm really happy with the cover. It is a hard cover that I made from chipboard, and it is covered with this beautiful black faux leather. See if I can catch the light for you. It's got this gorgeous texture. The cover I did leave a little plain because the inside is highly embellished. This is one of my very embellished journals, and yeah, so this is the front. I've got these Tim Holtz metal corners on it. You see this eyelet here. I have already removed the charm to save time, and we'll go through that in just a second. This front piece here is just this metal piece here. It's got a heart and these wings and a crown. The wings to reference the raven, which is his most famous poem, and then the heart and the crown to reference what in my opinion, that Poe is the king of romantic macabre. And then on the spine here, I've got this book plate with a removable label with Poe's name. And then, of course, there are these 4 ridges along the spine. And then the back is plain with the book corners. And then for the closure, it's just this repurposed necklace. So it's a velvet ribbon with these beautiful beaded metal tassels at the end. So quickly, I'm going to show you guys the charm. I'm going to try not to go into too much detail because, like I said, I am trying to hurry. So as usual, I've got all of the shiny, wonderful glass beaded goodness on here, like you guys know that I love to do. So there are lots and lots of beads on here. Tons of glass beads, a few different skulls. I've got these fancy eye pins that I found that have these filigree pieces on them, so I used a couple of those. A couple of my brass bells from Thailand. There are some charms. I've got this little chair that I'm using as a desk chair. There's this eye here to reference the telltale heart. There's a metal skull charm, a bird cage. There's a large ceramic skull. There are a couple of these hematite roses, and then I've also used these metal rose embellishments as beads that I was inspired by Priscilla to do. So thank you for that, Priscilla. There's this large metal bead. I think I'm missing a charm here somewhere. This is one of my favorite charms. This is a glass ink pot with a feathered pin coming out of it. And then I made these two glass domes. So Priscilla, you should be very careful with these guys because they are glass. In this one, I've just layered some silk roses, a paper rose, and then this black bird that I gessoed to represent a raven. So let me see if I can get it to focus for you guys. There we go. So you can get a closer look at that. I had a lot of fun making these, so I'll probably be making more in the future. And then this one is my favorite. It's just got some moss, and then I used another of the black ceramic skull beads, and I use metallic wax to bring out the features in it. And then I've got one of these vintage silk roses from April inside of it. And yeah, so that is that one. Please excuse my nail polish. So that's that one, and that is the charm, you guys. Like I said, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask me. So that's that. And I did have a rogue charm that fell off of the journal somewhere. So let's get inside of this big guy. As you can see, it is mighty huge, and I'm going to try my best to get through it as quickly as possible for you guys. So here is the closure, and let's get started. So I've just got trusty dusty Shakespeare here again to help me out. And the inside cover I've just covered with this text paper. And as you can see, here's the hole for where the charm goes. I've just added an applique there. On the inside cover, as usual, I've got my library pocket. And I have decoupaged one of Poe's most famous poems here, Alone. So you can pause that to read if you'd like. And then for the library card, of course, I have titled it with the poem, and this is the remainder of the poem on the back of the card. And then also tucked in the pocket is this bookmark that I've made for her. It's just an image of a book spine backed on file folder, and I've just got some seam binding, some vintage lace, and an applique here. There's a little token that says scary and a feather and so on. And then my usual envelope that I've made from a 6x6 doily, and I've just wrapped a bow around it, and then I've dripped some ink on it to look like blood. And inside, as always, is the title card with no title. I still have yet to come up with a title for this journal. I've had a really hard time. As much as I've enjoyed creating this journal, I just cannot think of a title for it. But Priscilla, I promise I'll have something on here before I get it to you. And then, of course, on the back, I've signed and dated. So here is the first page of the first signature. I've just stamped out this frame, fussy cut it, and layered onto some gold doilies and sewn around, and stamped out Ex Libris so she can add her name here if she'd like. And then on the edge I've got some trim and this beautiful lace from Kim. And then on the back there's just this pocket with this journaling card, which is an image of one of the circulars from back in the day. And then the back is plain for her to write on. And this is one of my flip up tags that I make from file folders. And this is just an embossed stamp that I have. Sorry, my hands are shaking today. I don't know why. And then you flip it up, And so there's lots of writing space, and then on the bottom there's this beautiful lace pocket. And tucked inside is this cabinet card with one of my favorite images of Poe. There are lots of duplicates of images of him in this journal because there aren't very many images of Poe out there. So just some coffee dyed paper with sewing. This is just a page from a book that I have with adages in it. Has beautiful imagery. So this is A True Love of Turtle Doves, and this is A Murder of Crows. This is that cool coffee dyed tracing paper that I made with the spilled ink from Poe's desk on it. I showed that on my Instagram a while back. So here's our first poem reference. This is one of my favorites, Annabel Lee. So this is just a large page pocket layered onto some cheesecloth and fabric. And tucked inside is a little booklet I made out of the parchment paper that I recycled that I used when I coffee dyed the paper. And then I've just sewn on this seam binding as a closure, and layered on the front is this doily that I've dyed and an embossed stamp and lace. And so inside of the booklet, I've made a few of these throughout the book. Inside of the booklet is the whole of the Annabel Lee poem, and then a blank page in the back for her to write. I love the text transfer on the backs of the pages. So that's what goes inside of that pocket. And then on the back side, I've just added some coffee dyed lined paper. And then throughout the book, there is also these quotes. They're either quotes he said, quotes from his short stories, or prose, and then also his poems. So this one is All That We See or Seem Is But a Dream Within a Dream, and that is from a poem. This is paper from a store-bought journal. I just like the texture. This is from some Bo Bunny Halloween paper. I just liked it because it has the images of bookshelves on it. And this is a repurposed tag that I've just covered in coffee dyed paper and done some stamping and sewing on. I'm going to leave all the tags out so you guys can see how it closes at the end. Here on this coffee dyed lined paper, I've just clipped this image of this handwritten segment of Annabel Lee. This is in Poe's own handwriting. I thought it would be cool to add that in there. And I've just got it paper clipped with this heart-shaped clip here. This is Rooibos Red Tea dyed paper. This is a page from a vintage Spanish encyclopedia that I got from April a long time ago, and this is a section on romantic literature, so I thought that was perfect. Here I've got a double pocket that I made out of vellum, and I've embossed some stamping on this vellum, and my idea with this was that it was sort of like a haunted garden, and these are moths flying through the haunted garden. And so I've just got these two tags tucked inside, and these are beautiful embossed tags that were sent to me from Dolly, and I've just added some red metallic ink to them and backed them with coffee dyed scraps. And then on the back side is the poem To Helen, which is another beautiful romantic poem. And then, of course, as always, I've got bulb pins everywhere with beads and charms, lots of feather charms and lace. More coffee dyed paper. This is another of the coffee dyed tracing paper, but this one has blood. So there's blood drips and fingerprints. This is some handmade paper with text on it, and then just a corner pocket made out of lace. And then tucked inside is this handmade tag. Handmade paper tag that I got from Kim, and I've just done some collaging on it. The bugs for Gold Bug. This is an EVG printout I've had forever from Maple's Diary. There's a raven here. So just lots of stuff on there. And then this is one of my tea bag. I can't talk today, you guys. I'm sorry. I'm just trying to hurry. This is one of my tea bag envelopes, and I've just layered some of this mesh fabric onto it, and it has a magnetic closure. And tucked inside of it is just a scrap of paper here, and then of course I had to add in an image of Edgar's signature, and that's what goes inside of that envelope. And then on the opposite side, just a little backstory so you guys understand what this is. When I was in the design phase of this journal, which I do with all of my large journals, I wanted to be able to incorporate envelopes because I didn't use any bags throughout this whole journal. Because Poe was a writer and he wrote a lot of letters, I thought that using envelopes would be an important detail, and it would be a way for me to use copies of letters that he actually wrote, and also a way for me to incorporate a copy of a biography that I wanted to include for Priscilla. And so I've made a couple, just 2 stacks of these envelopes, and each of these stacks have a quote-unquote secret element. So in each signature there are at least one of these embellished envelopes, and so this is the first one. I've just used scraps of trims and a photograph, and then I've done a wax seal on the back and sewing detail on the edge. Excuse me, you guys. And I was inspired by Tracy Fox for this one on the inside, but I just glued the paper down instead of making a pocket or anything. And then tucked inside of this one is a copy of an actual letter that he wrote in 1840, reduced facsimile autograph letter written by Poe on a blank page of the Pen magazine prospectus. So it's a copy that she will be able to read. And then this is just a handmade envelope from coffee dyed paper. I've just done text stamping and done some fake postage on the side here. And then inside of this one is a copy of The Valley of Unrest, which is one of his poems. And then in this envelope, this was a pre-made one that I've cut down and then coffee dyed. I've just sewn on some fabric. I've done some layering in the top corner here. See if I can get some focusing. And then on the back, I've done some layering with some book pages from his books. And then this is the first 2 pages of the biography that I printed out for her. And I just coffee dyed that and aged it for her. And then the secret element of this page, you probably can obviously see it, but it's just meant to be a hidden photograph of Poe. And this is just from the biography that I printed out for her. So it's meant to be hidden. You're not supposed to be able to see it, even though you kind of can. But it just tucks in there upside down, so you can't see it. So that's that. So there's just some more coffee dyed paper here. Little partial page here with a vellum tuck spot and a little journaling card with an Undertaker advertisement. And I've done some embossing on the vellum there. Just a little flip out page. This is some beautiful calligraphy practice paper that I got from a friend Kim, and I thought it was too perfect not to use. Another quote here: "We loved with a love that was more than love," and I believe that's from Annabel Lee. More coffee dyed paper, more rooibos tea dyed paper. Here's a Franken page with another quote: "Never to suffer would never to have been blessed." And there's just a tuck spot down here where I've layered a bunch of punched leaves, a doily, a fussy cut rose, some leaf trim, and then there's a journaling card tucked inside. A little raven on a chandelier. And then on the back side, this is the middle of the first signature. There's this pretty little brocade bag. It does have the little pulley strings, but it's glued down, so you won't be able to close it, Priscilla. But inside of the bag is this journaling card. It's really funny. I had to use this. But it also coincides with each signature sort of has a main story theme, and you will see that in just a second. And each of those are going to be interactive, so it's just this journaling card. And then tucked behind is another poem This one is Dreamland, and I've just printed that out for her, and it's a very long poem. So I folded it up so that it would fit behind the bag. And both of these elements do sort of coincide with the main interactive element, which is the story, The Facts in the Case of M. Valdemar, which is one of my personal favorites, and it is and was considered, back when it was written, it was considered one of his most frightening stories, because a lot of people believe that it was based on true scientific fact. Now, whether or not that's a true statement, I have no idea. But if you haven't read it, you should read it. It's a wonderful story. It's very short. You can read it in probably 25-30 minutes. But basically, without giving away too much, it's about a man, Mr. P, who wanted to do an experiment on a man who was at the point of death, and his name was M. Valdemar, and he wanted to hypnotize him and see what happens. So this is what I made for that story. So this is just one of those necklaces, another necklace like the one I used for the closure. I got those on clearance at Walmart, by the way, a long time ago. And so it attaches here at the top of the page with an eyelet, and this all just helps to keep this bulky pouch that I made held into the book. And so I've added a little charm here at the top, and it's just got some little beads and a little charm attached to it, and then a scroll, which there are a few scrolls in this book, and I'll read you this one. This one says, "I felt that I breathed an atmosphere of sorrow, which I felt matched the story." So that is that scroll. And then on the necklace, I've just glued these pieces here, and I've hand stitched it to the bottom of this pocket. And then there's this pocket, and you pull the pouch out, and then on the back of the page, I've embossed the words "in articula mortis," which in Latin literally mean "at the point of death," which if you read the story, you will understand what that means. So here is the pouch that I've made. It has this velvet ribbon closure, and so you just untie that, and it's attached to the pouch here, and then to this applique here that I've added to help keep it closed. And on the applique, I've added this chipboard coffin, and I've got some embossed detail on the edges here, and you probably can't see it very well, but there's a little tombstone here with a metal cross, and then I've also embossed the initials of M. Valdemar there. And so you open the flap here, and inside of the pouch is this booklet labeled Memoranda, and if you have or do read the story, you will understand what that means. And so this is just an image from some scrapbook paper that I cut out and glued to some cardstock. And so inside of the book, I've got "as told by Mr. L," who is the note taker in the story. And so he took the notes that would have been in this memoranda book. Patient name, M. Valdemar, ailment, severe stage phthisis. I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce this, but basically it is the old word for tuberculosis. So I've got a list of symptoms here: diagnosis, imminent death due to advanced invasive tuberculosis. List of treatment here, so I'll hold this so you can pause this if you would like to read it. I tried to disguise my handwriting. Medications, you can pause that if you would like to read it, and all of this goes along with the story, and of course I've embellished it just a little bit to make it fun. Experiment, and this says mesmerism in articula mortis. Observations, patient's deterioration is exceptionally evident. Here in less than 1 fortnight, M. Valdemar has had a change in appearance, so drastic that Mr. P was fearfully startled by his disposition. And basically, I have just gone through and started the elements of the story for her in this little memoranda book that Mr. L would have kept with him during the experiment to write notes in. So she can finish it off, or she can just use it to write notes in because the rest of it's blank. And so here's the study section of the book. The experiment begins as soon as patient has entered a state of near death. Doctors D and L have both agreed that Mr. M. Valdemar will not live through the next 24 hours. I, Mr. L., have arrived hither to the bedchamber of M. Valdemar, in relief of Mr. P., of whom I am to accompany. This here is the study of events that occurred henceforth. And so, like I said, I basically just started it off for her, and I had a lot of fun making that. So that is the interactive element for the facts in the case of M. Valdemar, and that's the little closure for it. And so on the back side of this page is a large lace applique pocket. Sorry about the lighting. And then tucked inside of this pocket is another booklet from parchment paper, and inside is the entirety of the story of the facts in the case of M. Valdemar, so she can read that. And then there's just some layering on the front here. And then on another eyelet here at the corner, I've just added this itty bitty tag that I made from, I layered a bunch of book text from his stories onto this craft cardstock, and used mixed media, matte media, my goodness, to collage it down. And then I take an embroidery floss and just made a little star here, and I've added a moon charm. And I don't know if you can see, but at the bottom it says the words belong to slumbers. And so that's why I've used this little tag, because it goes along with the story. So we've got more coffee dyed and tea dyed paper, and then a quote to go along with the story: sleep, those little slices of death, how I loathe them. And I think he was talking about having bad dreams with that. Other side of that, gorgeous calligraphy paper. And then here is just a tag that I've made to go along with M. Valdemar's story out of some scrap from that handmade paper. So I've just added a tab here, and then this is a coffin with a worm coming out of it. Just some little ephemera pieces, and you open it up. Here's Tim Holtz ephemera and some coffee dyed lined paper. And then I just paper clipped it to the page with this really cute paper clip that I made. I was having fun just playing around, and I used this fancy bead cap here, and I put it on his head, and I was like, wow, that looks like one of those laurel crowns like from the Roman days. And I thought it was cute. And then I remembered I had this butterfly charm, and I was like, oh, that looks like a rib cage. And so I put it together, and I just thought it was funny. His name is Charlie, in case you were wondering. It's Charlie the skeleton. Anyway, I'm such a nerd, but I thought he was super cute. And so I just used him to keep that together here. It's the other side of that partial page with a tuck spot, and I love this trim here because it reminds me of vein working, like in your body. And this is what I was talking about with the collaging of the text on the craft cards, just a simple tag for her to use, and just tuck that in this tuck spot. I'll do that later. More coffee dyed paper. This is a flip out with some lace. This is a large pocket here that I made. You may recognize this embroidered fabric because I used a lot of it in the Creatures of the Night journal that I made for April, Pink Oddbird. It's from a skirt. And then I have a bulb pin here with a little heartbeat and some feathers. And tucked inside is a film still from, it says Basil Rathbone mesmerizes the dying Vincent Price in the facts in the case of M. Valdemar as told in Roger Corman's Tales of Terror from 1962. So I thought that was neat. and I've just backed it with coffee dyed paper, and that's just from the, where is it? This is that vintage illustrated Edgar Allan Poe book that I got off of eBay. Love this book. Had a really hard time using the images, but I had to. So this is just a large tag I've made. I made a couple of these with images of Poe, and I've just added a quote here that says, "I became insane with long intervals of horrible sanity." And really simple. I've just added some layered trims and laces at the bottom here, and it's plain on the back. Got some ruffled mesh trim here along the side. It's that beautiful handmade paper here, and the bloody, crinkly tracing paper, some more fingerprints, coffee dyed paper. This is just a decorative collage that I made. There are a couple of these. I've got some ruffled red sari silk here on the edge. So I've just hand stitched some appliques here, and then I made 3 of these fake little feathered pins. I used these Tim Holtz pin nibs, and then these black feathers that I had. And so I've just sewn it to this vellum that I've stamped and inked, and then I've glued this quote to the page. "Men have called me mad, but the question is not yet settled, whether madness is or is not the loftiest intelligence, whether much that is glorious, whether all that is profound, does not spring from disease of thought, whether, from moods of mind exalted at the expense of general intellect." And that is from Complete Tales and Poems, and that is one of my most favorite quotes by him. Yeah, it gives you a lot to think about. But I've just layered a bunch of embellishments and things that I've made here. The back side is plain for lots of writing space. This is the other side of that really cool Spanish encyclopedia page. There's another quote here that says, "I was never really insane except upon occasions when my heart was touched." And if you think about it, how true is that? More coffee dyed and rooibos dyed papers. It's the other side of that partial page, except on these bookshelves, if you can see that, there is a little friend there. A little mouse. On the back side, I've just made a pocket out of a tea bag. And then inside there is this cute little tag that Dolly made, and I've just stitched the edges and added some scrap sari silk. On the back is a Tim Holtz sticker, and then another sticker, "In the darkness" it says, and there's a poison bottle. And then this 7 Gypsies flashcard. It says Iris, and that is in reference to the Telltale Heart. Another quote, "I have great faith in fools," it says. "Self-confidence, my friends will call it." It's really funny. Here is our second story reference. It's just a large vellum pocket on this handmade paper. This is the Black Cat. This is Aubrey Beardsley's impression of the Black Cat. This is from that vintage book. And then on the back side is Harry Clark's illustration for the Gold Bug. I didn't want to cover it up because Harry Clark is one of my most favorite illustrators ever. So I wanted to leave that for her to look at. Isn't that cat just, oh, he's so creepy. Aubrey Beardsley was a fantastic illustrator as well. So there's just some lace on there to help pull that out. And then on the back side, I've got a double pocket made out of some text from the Black Cat story. And then, I don't know if you can see, I know it's kind of hard to see right now, but I've got a little black cat here in the corner that I fussy cut from some paper. And then there's a tag here with Tim Holtz, and I believe that's Recollections. I've just stitched around and then added coffee dyed lined paper to the back. He's so funny. And then in the second pocket is this collaged tag that I've made, It says, I wish I could write as mysterious as a cat. And so I've just added this pin that I fussy cut, layered some trims and such. And then these are all text from the story as well. And then I've added these crazy looking kitties and a skull. And then the back is plain so she can write. More of the inky, crunchy paper. And then here's another page from An Exaltation of Larks, and this one has a clouder of cats upon it. A cluster of house cats, a clutter of cats, a destruction of wild cats, or a kindle of kittens, it says. This is just a little tag that I made. I've embossed the word nightmare because that cat was a total nightmare in that story. Just a little piece of ephemera I've glossy accented over the top of it and added these 2 jewelry beads to the sides, and I've got Distress Oxides all over the tag. And then sewn to the back of this page is another booklet, and I've just done a lot of, let's see if I can catch the gold, a lot of Tattered Angels splattering and ink splattering. I'm sorry, I don't know if you guys can see it a little bit here, but there's gold splatters. And then I've sewn this cat onto here. This is from a Tim Holtz Halloween ephemera pack, and inside is the entirety of the story of the black cat, so she can read that. And then behind it is a secret writing spot. So just got that paper clip there to help hold it down. More ripped coffee dyed paper. And then the last page of the signature, you guys, is another pocket. And tucked inside is this large tag that I've made from some Halloween scrapbook paper. And just to help make it not look so Halloween-y, I've added some stitching with red and black thread, some coffee dye lined paper on the back, and of course I had to add it because it had a raven and a bat in the bird cage, and seam binding and trim on the top. And then here's one of the first Anatomical Hearts. There are quite a few of these journal cards throughout the book. I just think that Anatomical Heart goes well with a lot of Poe's work. So, and I love these images, so I'm really into medical images. So, anything medical really. So I had to add that in there. It's back with coffee dye card, and so that's that. And this is one of my Rolodex cards with a twist. So if you haven't seen that tutorial, I will link it down below for you guys. So there's the front and there's the back, and the twist is that it has a secret pocket, and inside of this one is 2 journaling cards. So here's this one, this beautiful ink bottle and feather pen. And then this one is cool. It's a little K & Company card with where she can make her own secret message. It's got a little code she can use. So I thought that was cute. And I've just tucked that in here with the little fabric barely peeping out. And that is the back side of the paper, and there's the second signature that we will continue in part 2, you guys. So thank you so much for hanging in there. I hope I covered everything okay, and like I said, if you have any questions, please ask me down below and I will get back to you on that, and I will see you in part 2. So till next time, you guys, spread the love. Bye.